Hi, everybody. So, welcome back to the Problem With, and we are on the episode of the lies we tell. Today's episode is going to be something that so it happens every day to a lot of people, mainly in the immigrant community. It's stuff that we hear all the time, and it's called the myth of the good immigrant. What is considered a good immigrant? That's the thing that everybody hears, especially from the Republican Party. They always say, well, these are the good immigrants. Why can't we just keep them? And so we want to get down that myth of what the good immigrant is because this has been a use as a tool for hatred. So let's start with, let me paint you a picture. A man wakes up at 4:30 in the morning. They pack his lunch, lace up worn out boots, heads out to a job nobody else wants. Maybe washing dishes, laying drywall, harvesting crops in triple digit heat. He doesn't complain. He doesn't take a sick day. And at night, he comes home to help his kids with homework. In a language he's still learning. He's one of the good ones, they said. Now, a woman, same story. She cleans houses, sends money home, applies for every visa, every work permit, every renewal. She's quiet, polite. She's grateful to be here. They say she's the kind of immigrant we like. And it sounds nice, right? It sounds flattering, almost like praise. But here's the truth. That story, the story of the good immigrant isn't just a stereotype. It's a cage, a trap, a performance. Because as soon as you create the good immigrant, you automatically create a bad one. And now you've drawn a line that says, these people deserve to be here and these people don't. So let me ask, who draws that line? Who benefits from it? And who gets erased by it? Because the good immigrant isn't just about character. It's about control. It's about forcing people to stay quiet, keep their heads down, not protest, not speak the truth, or else risk being labeled dangerous, ungrateful, or illegal. And the worst part, a lot of us bought into it. I'll be honest, so did I. For a long time, I believed that if you just follow the rules and stay quiet, the system will protect you. I learned English in Colombia. And for me, that gave me a head start. It gave me a little more confidence when I moved here, trying to find my place. That was a privilege. And I see that now. Because most people don't get that chance. Most immigrants don't show up fluent in English. They're learning while surviving, while working two jobs, while raising kids, while navigating a system designed to confuse and criminalize them. And still, we expect perfection. We expect them to be fluent, compliant, invisible, and grateful all at once. That's the trap of the good immigrant. Because once you start measuring who's good enough, you're also deciding who's disposable. And here's where the other part that no one talks about. When we uphold the good immigrant narrative, when we praise the ones who work harder, speak softly, and never challenge anything, we are not helping. We are reinforcing a system that throws everyone else under the bus. We're giving cover to deportation. We're giving fuel to the ICE raids. We're giving politicians the excuse to separate families at the border. Because, hey, they said, we're just getting rid of the bad ones. But what defines a bad one anyway? Missing a court date you didn't know about? Using a fake social security number to work because no one will hire you otherwise? Speaking up at protests? By the way, the social security thing, white people do it a lot more often than the immigrants. So let's get that straight up. Or being poor, being brown. So today, this episode, we're pulling back that curtain. We're going to break the myth wide open. We'll talk about where this narrative came from, how it goes all the way back to Ellis Island and the melting pot myth. We'll talk about how politicians and the media weaponize it, how they use one group of immigrants to demonize the other. We'll talk about how even well-meaning communities reinforce it, and how it shows up in the way we talk to our kids, the advice we give our neighbors, with the way we treat people with accents or without papers. And we'll talk about what it looks like to stop performing, to stop begging for permission, and start demanding justice. Because this isn't just about immigration. This is about how this country uses respectability as a leash. Because it tells black folks to be non-threatening. It tells LGBTQ people to blend in. It tells women to smile more. It tells Muslims to prove they are peaceful. And then tells immigrants to shut up and be grateful. It's the same playbook. It's not about safety. It's about silence. So when they say, we only want the good immigrants, what they're really saying is, we only want the ones who won't fight back. Well, today, I'm fighting back. Let's get into it.
Immigrants are good for the economy and our society. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. For centuries, immigration has been America's secret sauce for economic growth and prosperity. But for just as long, immigrants have been an easy scapegoat. One of the oldest, ugliest lies is to falsely smear immigrants as criminals.
We have a new category of crime. It's called migrant crime.
It's just not true. Crime is way down in America. Anyone who says otherwise is fear-mongering. And whatever crime there is not being driven by immigration. Immigrants, regardless of citizenship status, are 60% less likely to be incarcerated for committing crimes than U.S.-born citizens. Maybe that's why border cities are among America's safest. Immigration opponents also claim immigrants are a drag on the economy and a drain on government resources.
They want the free stuff, and they're coming here to get it, and it's not right.
Rubbish. Quite the opposite. The major reason immigrants are coming to America is to build a better life for themselves and their families, contributing to the American economy. The long-term economic benefits of immigration outweigh any short-term costs. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that adding more immigrants as workers and consumers, including undocumented immigrants, will grow America's economy by about $7 trillion over the next decade. And those immigrants would increase tax revenue by about $1 trillion, shrinking the deficit and helping pay for programs we all benefit from. Immigrants of all statuses pay more in taxes than they get in government benefits. Research by the Libertarian Cato Institute found that first-generation immigrants pay $1.38 in taxes for every $1 they receive in benefits. This is especially true for undocumented immigrants, who pay billions in taxes each year but are excluded from almost all federal benefits.
So let me start with something that might sound familiar if you've ever been in an immigrant spaces, or honestly, just been around folks trying to prove they belong. People have said to me and other immigrants, "You're not like those immigrants. You're one of the good ones." Yeah, I have heard this plenty of times. During my military service, during my professional as a teacher, I've heard this before. Which is crazy because, again, I'm a citizen even before I joined the Marine Corps. So, yeah, exactly. Now, this is supposed to sound like a compliment? Like they're lifting you up. But let's be real, this is a warning. Because what they're really saying is, we got a system of boxes, and we put you in the acceptable box for now. Now let's go back in time. That I mentioned earlier, Ellis Island, the one they teach you about in school, the gateway, the melting pot, the beacon of hope. Between 1892 and 1954, more than 12 million people passed through there. And the story we get told, it's always framed like this miracle of American generosity, the Statue of Liberty, a fresh start. Just work hard and you'll make it. But that reality, Ellis Island was a checkpoint, a filter. You had to pass a physical exams, answer invasive questions, prove you wouldn't be a burden. And if you were disabled, too sick, too poor, or didn't speak English well enough, you could be sent back. Now, That's not to say it was a pure cruelty, but let's not romanticize it. Here's the thing. Most of the folks coming through where they were white Europeans, Irish, German, Italian, Jewish, Polish. And at first, a lot of them weren't considered fully American either. We all know about this. Come on. There were signs that said, "No Irish need apply." There was anti-Semitism, xenophobia, fear of Catholics. But over time, they were allowed to blend in. They got folded into whiteness. And eventually, they became the model, the right kind of immigrant. Now let's fast forward. Compare that to the immigrants face today, especially at the southern border. Let's be real. There's no Statue of Liberty in McAllen, Texas. There's no poem waiting for asylum seekers in Yuma, Arizona. What there is, there's barbed wire, detention centers, kids in cages, drones, agents in camo. In 2021 alone, there were more than 1.6 million arrests at the border. And these weren't just people sneaking in. Many were trying to turn themselves in, seeking asylum legally, running from violence, war, climate collapse, or poverty made worse by, you guessed it, U.S. foreign policy. But how do we treat them? We call them illegals. We call them a crisis. The caravan, all that stuff, and we talk to them like it's a threat. So let's pause and just sit with this. What's the difference between the Ellis Island immigrants and the modern border immigrants? It's not effort. It's not character. It's not values. It's race. It's class. It's politics. Back then, most immigrants were white. Today, they're black and brown, Mexican, Honduran, Haitian, Salvadorian. And that's when the rules change. That's when we go from welcome signs to helicopters. And also, we go from welcome signs to go back to where you belong. Now, let's talk about the model minority myth. Because this one gets used like a weapon, and it starts in the mid-1960s. After the Civil Rights Act and immigration reform, the U.S. starts bringing in high-skilled Asian immigrants, doctors, engineers, scientists. And soon enough, we get this storyline. And I quote, "They are smart, they are quiet, they don't complain, they are the good ones." Sound familiar? And suddenly the model minority myth takes shape. It gets used to say, "See, these folks are thriving, why can't black Americans do the same? Look at these families, they value education. They didn't come here illegally." It's divide and conquer. But here's the catch. It ignores the huge diversity within Asian communities. Cambodian refugees, like Hmong families, working class Filipinos, they didn't arrive with degrees or tech jobs. They arrived with trauma, with poverty, with next to nothing. But the myth made them invisible. And worse, it turned them into a tool to pit communities against each other. Have you guys the stereotypes about Asian people? That they're good at math? Come on, man. Like, who created that? Now, let's bring in DACA. If you need a refresher, it stands for Defer Action for Childhood Arrivals. When it was announced in 2012, people celebrated it. And yeah, it helped some people, including students, like students I've taught. But let's not sugarcoat it. DACA is not freedom. It's a deal with conditions. You had to be working or in school. You couldn't have any legal trouble. You had to reapply constantly and pay fees. You couldn't leave the country. And it was never permanent. You were safe only as long as the government didn't change its mind. And when DACA recipients became the poster children for immigration reform, guess what that meant? It meant that everyone else, the parents, the older siblings, the undocumented workers, were suddenly not worthy. It reinforced the idea, some of you are good enough, the rest of you, you're the problem. The myth is deep. It shows up everywhere. Like when a student tells me, my dad say if I don't cause trouble, ICE won't come for us. This is a real quote, guys. Or when a neighbor says, we're not like those people crossing the desert, we came the right way. It's also stuff I heard. Or even someone who says, you're not like the other immigrants. And this is amazing. That one I heard so many times. Listen, like I said, I learned English in Colombia. And yeah, that gave me a head start. It made school and work easier when I got here. But I know that's not everyone's story. Most folks don't have that. They learn English while surviving, working 12-hour shifts, raising kids, navigating trauma, paying bills, fighting off fear. And still, they are expected to perform, to be grateful, to never make a mistake, to stay silent. So what do we do with this? Well, first we name it. Say it out loud. The good immigrant myth is a lie. A lie used to divide us, to distract us, to justify cruelty. Second, we call out the game. Because the minute you build a hierarchy of good versus bad, someone's always getting kicked off the ladder. And third, we stop playing nice. We stop begging for dignity. We stop demanding we start demanding justice. Because people deserve safety. Because they are people. We are humans. Not because they got a diploma, not because they speak English perfectly, not because they stayed out of trouble, but because no one should have to prove they are human. So next time someone says, well, I just support legal immigration, ask them, legal according to who? Because laws don't equal justice. History has proven that, time and time again. These are two stories about immigration in this country. One, the one they teach, is Ellis Island. Statues, dreams, bootstraps, pride. The other is what's happening right now. Cages, courts, deportation quotas. And the truth? They're both lies. Incomplete, curated lies. The real story is about the power. Who gets it, who doesn't, and why. And if we want to change the story, we can't just rewrite it. We got to tear it down and build something better. Let's stick with me.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. The surge in people arriving at our southern border comes as the Biden administration hopes to overhaul an immigration system described for years as broken. The number of foreign-born people in America has quadrupled since the 1960s, and at least 11 million of those folks are here without documentation. Under the Biden plan, many of them would now qualify for a path to citizenship, and that is stirring a fresh debate about what America represents and who America is for.
Some of us remember every detail about how our families arrived here.
I came in a raft, escaped from Cuba in a raft 29 years ago.
I moved to U.S. as a refugee. Yeah, flew from Australia to Los Angeles and no problems.
For others, the stories have been told and retold through generations.
My great-grandfather was a stone cutter from Italy.
My family originally is from Spain.
My Oma and Opa are from Germany, and they came over through Ellis Island.
And for families like these, the legal details may be a little fuzzy.
Do you remember what the rules were, what the process was like back then?
Only from what I've read. They didn't talk about it much.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know about that.
The fact is, if you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who can trace their ancestors to early settlers or later arrivals through Ellis Island, there's a good reason you can't remember the national rules back then. There were none.
You just showed up. You didn't need a passport. You didn't need a visa. There's no such thing as a green card.
Wow.
Right? If there's no restrictions, everybody's legal.
May Nye is a history professor at Columbia University. She says prior to the first National Immigration Act in 1924, almost everyone who made it to America got to stay in America. 98% of people who passed through Ellis Island were allowed in.
My family came through there.
And as I discovered on a recent trip to the island, one of those arrivals was my own great-grandfather.
Raffaele starts the story of your family's immigration.
A researcher showed me how he came from Italy in a situation not so different from the border stories we hear today.
Wow.
He was young.
He was young and alone.
An unaccompanied minor.
Unaccompanied minor.
Unaccompanied minor, right. Did he become a citizen?
He did. He became a citizen, fought in World War I. His children fought in World War II.
Uh-huh.
It ends up being what a lot of people would call a classic American story.
Right.
But it makes me think, what are the important differences, if any, between him in the early 20th century and that same 15-year-old on the border today?
Right. Color of their skin.
So let's talk about something I know a lot of us carry like a second skin. The performance, the pressure to be perfect, to be exceptional, to be invisible and excellent at the same time. If you're an immigrant, you know exactly what I mean. It starts early. Sometimes you even get here. You are told, keep your head down, don't make trouble, be grateful, learn English, get a job, don't ask for help, and whatever you do, don't get in trouble. Now, because the second you mess up, even a little, the system is ready to snatch everything away. Let's walk through what that actually looks like. If you're undocumented, or even if you had something like DACA, or Temporary Protected Status, TPS, you're expected to perform perfection just to exist. You have to stay in school or employ full-time, never be arrested, not even for a traffic stop, reapply constantly and pay excessive fees, avoid public assistance entirely, even food stamps for your kids, speak fluent English even if this is your third or fourth language. And let me tell you, this isn't just a social exception or social expectation, it's written on policy. Take DACA, Defer Action for Childhood Arrivals. When Obama announced it in 2012, it wasn't some radical act of mercy. It was a compromise, a deal. DACA recipients had to arrive before the age of 16, have a clean criminal record, be in school or graduated, paid hundreds in fees every 2 years. And here's the part that one talks about. DACA didn't offer citizenship. It didn't even offer permanent residency. All it said it was, if you're perfect, we'll let you stay for now. And then in 2017, even that was taken away. The Trump administration tried to terminate DACA, throwing the futures of nearly 800,000 dreamers into chaos. So kids who had grown up here, graduated here, work here, paid taxes. Everything that they asked for them. And overnight, their lives were up to debate on cable news. You follow every rule, doesn't matter, the rules change. And that's the trap. And it's not just DACA. Let's talk about TPS, Temporary Protected Status, as a reminder. TPS is supposed to protect immigrants from countries facing war, natural disaster, or political collapse. Countries like Haiti, El Salvador, Honduras, and Sudan. You think that protection will be solid, right? Nope. Under the Trump administration, TPS was terminated for multiple countries, even though those countries were still unsafe. That meant 300,000 people, many of whom had lived in the United States for over a decade, built families, paid taxes, were now at risk of deportation. Respectability didn't save them. Working hard didn't save them. Following the law didn't save them. If you think green card holders are safe, oh buddy, think again. There are folks who've been permanent residents for decades who suddenly find themselves targeted by denaturalization programs. Yep, the government launched a task force to review thousands of old citizenship cases, looking for reasons to strip people of their status. Something as simple as a typo in an old application or failure to disclose a minor infraction from years ago could trigger removal proceedings. Imagine living here for 30 years, and one day, ICE knocks on your door because of something buried in paperwork from 1996. That's not rule of law, that's targeted instability. And you see how it works, right? It's a moving goalpost. It's earn your right to stay until they decide you haven't earned it enough. Let me say it plain. Respectability is not a shield, it's a leash, because it doesn't protect you, it just controls you. It keeps you compliant, afraid, constantly trying to prove your worth to a system that never planned to accept you in the first place. And let's talk about the human cost of this pressure, because I've seen it firsthand. Like I said, I taught students with DACA, TPS, or undocumented parents, and every time immigration came up in the news, these kids will show up in class terrified. They ask questions no 16-year-old should ever ask. Will I be able to go to college? Will my mom or dad be home when I get back? If I get good grades, will that help us stay? And I had families tell me they skipped medical treatment because they were afraid to put their names on any official paperwork, even for their kids. That's not freedom, that's performance under threat. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean we stop striving. It doesn't mean we give up on goals or education growth, but it does mean we stop thinking that being good is what makes us safe. Because here's the truth. The good immigrant narrative only works if there's also a bad one to compare you to. It's a system built on exclusion, on separation. And the worst part, it turns communities against each other. You see it all the time. One immigrant group being used as the success story to shame others. People saying like, at least we're not like them, or we came the right way. But what even is the right way? Because immigration law is in this country, it's not some neutral thing. It's a patchwork of racist, classist, intentionally confusing policies designed to benefit the privileged and punish the vulnerable. Now let's drop the fact here. In 1924, Immigration Act literally banned immigrants from most of Asia, set quotas of Southern and Eastern Europe, and prioritized Northern Europeans, basically codifying white supremacy into immigration law. And in 2023, let's fast forward, we still saw bills in Florida and Texas, shocking, of course it's those two, targeting immigrants for arrest based on vague suspicion. So when a politician says they only oppose illegal immigration, they are lying. They oppose immigrants, period. So let's stop chasing safety through respectability. Let's stop telling kids they'll be okay if they just stay quiet. Let's stop thinking a clean record or a full-time job makes us bulletproof. Because it doesn't. And it shouldn't have to. Human dignity is not conditional. It's not something we earn. It's something we demand for everyone. Whether you're a straight-A student or struggling to pay rent, whether you're fluent in English or still learning, whether you came here on a visa or crossed the desert in desperation. Because here's the bottom line. The rules are designed to change. The bar is meant to move, and the system is built to make us feel like we're one mistake away from losing it all. But we don't have to play that game. We can name it, call it what it is, and fight back. Not by being perfect, but by being unapologetically human. That's how we survive. Together.
And today, filing fees for foreign visas and other applications involving the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Agency will cost more. That begins today, April 1st. For example, the H-1B visa that allows employers to hire foreign workers in specialty occupations will now cost $780. That's about a 70% increase over the original $460 fee.
So here's the next argument that always shows up, always, when we talk about immigration in the United States. Well, other countries are stricter. Try becoming a citizen in Japan. You have to speak the language and prove yourself everywhere, not just here. And on the surface, like, sure, that's reasonable. But let's dig deeper, because this argument isn't really about immigration. It's about deflecting the responsibility. And today we're going to break it down, globally, historically, and morally. Let's start with the language claim, because it comes up all the time. Other countries force you to speak the language to become a citizen. That's kind of true, but also deeply misleading. Most countries do have language requirements, but the difference is how they treat immigrants while they're learning. Let's look at Germany. Germany has mandatory integration courses for immigrants, language, history, culture. But there's the catch. The government actually pays for them. Same in Canada, where new immigrants get access to free or heavily subsidized English or French classes through the Federal Language Instruction for Newcomers program. Even France, which does have strong assimilation policies, offers free public classes for language and civics. Now compare that to the United States. Here, we expect you to learn English on your own dime. There's no universal access to adults' ESL programs. Waitlists stretch for months, classes are underfunded, and many communities, especially rural and southern ones, don't have any support at all. You are told just to learn English, but given no tools, no access, no help. That's not a policy, that's a setup. Alright, let's talk about the money, because this part, most people have no idea how bad it is. The United States immigration process is one of the most expensive in the world. And it's getting more expensive, by the way. And let me say that again. America's immigration system is not just confusing. It's extortionate. Just to become a legal permanent resident, what most people call getting a green card, you're looking, and I'm breaking it down, $1,140 for the main application, $85 for fingerprinting, at $1,225 in most total fees. And that's not including attorney fees, translations, travel, or document retrieval. If you're applying through a spouse or family member, add hundreds more for adjustment of status. And then to become a citizen, that's another $760 under the US CIS rules. And again, this is not counting any legal costs. Want to bring your kids, your spouse, multiply all that. And we haven't even gone into visas for refugees, TPS renewals, asylum filings, or work permits. Each one costs money, often every year. Now imagine doing this while you work 2 jobs and can't qualify for federal aid because of your immigration status. Imagine doing it while your wages are being stolen or you're being underpaid because your boss knows you're undocumented and scared. We built a system where people have to pay thousands of dollars just to prove they belong, and then we call them criminals for not doing it fast enough. Now let's compare it to other countries. Okay? Because we love to compare everybody. In Sweden, the total cost for applying for citizenship, $150 USD. So $150. In Australia, around $285. Mexico, roughly $200. In the United States charges 3 to 5 times more than most developed nations and provides less support to navigate the process. In fact, in 2023, the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that over half of all naturalization applications were delayed past their legal processing time, some stretching well over 2 years. So yeah, other countries may have rules, but America makes it confusing on purpose and expensive by design. But you know, let's go deeper. Because this next part, it's about the morals. Even other countries were stricter, so what? We're talking about a country that prides itself on being the land of opportunity, right? That's what we call ourselves, right? We're a country with the Statue of Liberty, the melting pot myth, the nation of immigrants. So why are we using Japan or Hungary or France, Eldas as a standard? Since when do we look at most exclusionary countries and say, yeah, let's copy that? That's not leadership, that's regression. And more often than not, that argument only shows up when we're trying to justify cruelty. And let's talk about that phrase. They should have done it the right way. Okay, that sounds simple, sound fair, or like get in line. But let me walk you through the right way. There are over 185 visa types in the United States, and each one has a different set of rules, timelines, and traps. Some require a job sponsor, others require family. Many require that you already be rich. Want to immigrate to the United States through work? Better have a master's degree, a company willing to sponsor you, and a lottery win for a cap-limited H-1B visa. Want to get through family? Be prepared to wait. 7 years for siblings for most countries. 10 plus years if you're from Mexico or the Philippines. Even marrying a U.S. citizen can take years, thousands of dollars, and multiple interviews just to prove your relationship is real. There's nothing straightforward about this. Now let's address the elephant in the room. If you don't like it here, go somewhere else. God, I hate that argument. These people are so brainwashed. The argument is lazy and is so dangerous. Because most people don't leave their homes for fun. They leave because they have to. If you live in the United States, will you leave where you live? Like if you are from Texas, all of a sudden you can't live there because something happens, because wherever you live is dangerous, so you decide to move to Oregon. You didn't want to leave Texas because you love it, but you had to. That's what people are going through. It's like, because we destroyed their town. Like, this is what's happening. This is what Americans did. We destroyed their town because gang violence made it impossible to raise a child. Because the government collapsed or the climate dried up their crops. Or U.S. intervention destabilized their economy in the name of freedom. And even after all that, they're told just they should be grateful for being here. Even while they're being surveyed, underpaid, hunted by ICE, charged thousands just to stay in line. What kind of fucking freedom is that? Now, let me flip that question. What if, just what if, we built an immigration system that actually treated people like people? Not as threat, not as numbers, not just as applicants, as people. What if learning a language wasn't a punishment, but an invitation? What if paperwork didn't cost a month's rent? What if we admitted that the point of immigration isn't to preserve whiteness or protect capital, but don't build a community. To build a community. Because here's the truth. Other countries are stricter. It's an immoral argument. It's an excuse to do nothing. It's a way of saying, this cruelty is normal, so stop complaining. But here's the thing. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's just. We can't claim to be the greatest country in the world while copying the worst policies on the planet. We can't claim to be a beacon of hope while changing thousands to even apply. And we can't claim to care about immigration if we only care about the right kind of immigrant. If your freedom depends on someone else's silence, if your sense of order depends on someone else's fear, that's not security. That is control. So let's stop justifying injustice with the, but what about Japan? Or what about this? What about that? The whataboutisms are stupid. And let's start asking a better question. What about us? Now, see what I did there? It's like, what kind of country do we actually want to be? Let's build that. Like, if you want people to actually come to this country and do it the right way, that you need to help, provide help. I mentioned earlier, your other countries help. The government helps immigrants learn the language. That way, they can whatever you want to call it, become part of the culture. That if that's what you want, then the government needs to start putting the money where their mouth is. We'll move on.
Now, I saw on the way into work a illegal immigration family digging through the trash looking for recyclables.
How did you know they were illegal?
You can tell. And
Jesse.
I can tell. I'm a city guy.
I mean, Charlie, that's Tucker. That's what Tucker gone. The whole network. It's not like Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters are like, oh, good. Now we're back to like the Paul Ryan Republican Party. This is the Paul Ryan Republican Party at this point.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. You have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country.
After seeing the recent video of a wild pack of illegal aliens viciously attacking these two New York City, really good people, too. I saw an interview. High-quality police officers. I'm going to ask Congress to pass a strong sentencing enhancement bill that any illegal alien assaulting a police officer, they immediately go to jail, or even better, they get thrown out of the country, brought back to the country that came from, because putting them in jail is very expensive for us.
The easiest image for the American media to use when it comes to immigrants is right on the border, is of streams of people coming in, either swimming through the Rio Grande or lining up or walking through miles in lines across the Sonoran Desert. And those images just make it seem like it really is a true invasion. It's sensationalized. That's what media does. Media always sensationalizes. The media always simplifies the issues at hand. So when the American public sees all these people coming into the United States, then the easy response is, okay, let's stop it by putting a bunch of military men there.
Good fences make for good neighbors.
I believe in securing our borders.
Our borders are not secure.
Securing our borders.
We have made historic investments in manpower, technology, and infrastructure to help secure our borders.
Now, let's talk about storytelling. Because if you want to know what a country believes about immigrants, don't just look at the law. Look at the movies, the TV shows, the news headlines, the true crime podcasts. Look at the stories. We're told again and again, and who gets to tell them? Because media, it doesn't just reflect what we believe. It shapes it. It builds consent, quietly, passively, until we stop questioning what we're even watching. And when it comes to immigrants, the American media has told us one of two stories. You're either the grateful hero or the violent criminal. There's no in between. You want examples? Here we go. Let's start with the grateful hero, because this trope shows up everywhere. Think of Coming to America. Eddie Murphy is a literal African prince. He's rich, regal, polite, grateful, romantic, and he falls in love with America. Not for what it is, but what it promises. Or the dad in Fresh Off the Boat, a sitcom immigrant who works hard, gets excited about American fast food, and believes in the dream so hard that it becomes comedy. Even Minari, a powerful, beautiful film about a Korean family in rural Arkansas. They still lean into that quiet nobility. They suffer in silence, they are poor but proud, they don't make trouble, and when the system fails them, they try harder. These stories are moving, they're human, but they also build an expectation. If you're an immigrant, you must be grateful, you must be excellent, you must be lovable, or else you're invisible. And that's the catch, because while white and light-skinned immigrants get room to be quirky, flawed, messy, Black, brown, and Arab immigrants, they get the other story. You want to know what story is? The criminal immigrant. This one? We've been drowning in it for decades. Let's start with Scarface. Everybody loves Scarface, a Cuban refugee turned drug kingpin. Now let's go with Sicario. Mexicans portrayed as cartel members, smugglers, lawless ghosts in the desert. Here comes the trio. Here we go. Zero Dark 30, American Sniper, and Lone Survivor. What do they have in common? Arab characters framed through the lens of terror, violence, and suspicion. Law and Order, SVU. Entire seasons where the only brown immigrant is the guy trafficking women or faking a marriage for a green card. And this isn't just Hollywood being lazy. It's political. They were told to do this. Because when you only ever show immigrants as dangerous, unless they're perfectly behaved, you're building a story that justifies fear, justifies surveillance, justifies cages and raids and billion-dollar border walls. You're not just entertaining, you're building consent. And it doesn't stop with movies. Let's talk about the news, everybody's favorite topic. Multiple studies, like the 2019 analysis by the University of Illinois and Media Matters, found that immigrants are overrepresented in crime coverage and underrepresented in stories about success or everyday life. That means when immigrants do something criminal or are accused of it, it gets amplified, headline, repeated. But when immigrants open businesses, teach in classrooms, help heal patients, save lives, nothing. That's like the expectation, apparently. Well, we expected you to do that. Let's take an example in 2015. Everybody's favorite network. Fox News ran 8 segments in 1 week on one undocumented immigrant accused of murder in San Francisco. Meanwhile, that same week, not a single segment on immigrant healthcare workers, teachers, or community leaders, even though immigrants made up over 16% of all U.S. labor and nearly 20% of essential workers during COVID. The coverage is not random, it's manufactured, especially in the Fox News section. And it's not just what they say, it's how they say it. Think about what the media frames white immigrants, especially Europeans. They're rarely called illegals. Instead, you hear expat, international traveler, freelancer from abroad, Australian living in New York. No raids, no mugshots, no panic. Meanwhile, a Haitian mother sick in asylum with her child, suddenly the words change. Flood of migrants, illegals crossing en masse, burden on the system, they're eating the dogs. Same act, different race, different framing. Because whiteness doesn't just decide who gets rights, it decides who gets a backstory. Let's do a quick comparison. Irish gangs in Boston, Italian mobsters in New Jersey, Russian hackers in New York. These are all white immigrant criminals, and they exist in TV and movies. But watch how they are portrayed. They're complex, they have families, they're tragic, they get redemption arcs. Look, you want to know? Tony Soprano, anti-hero. Pablo Escobar, foreign villain. Technically, that one is a little tricky, but you get them. He was giving cocaine to white people, so they kind of had a little difference on that one. Okay, so anyways, Pablo Escobar is a foreign villain, according to the... So anyways, same crime, different myth. So Tony Soprano did drugs. Pablo Escobar did drugs. But anyway, one is white and Italian. The other one is brown and Colombian. Same crime, different myth. So ask yourself, who gets to be flawed and human? And who has to be perfect just to be accepted? Am I saying that crime should be respectable? No, I'm just saying that we should, if you're going to treat someone who commits a crime like this, everybody should be treated the same way then. This is about more than TV though. Because when Hollywood and the news keeps pushing this binary, grateful angel or dangerous criminal, it shapes the policy. It shapes juries. It shapes school discipline. It shapes voter opinion. It shapes who gets rescued and who gets deported. And the scariest part, a lot of immigrants start believing it themselves. I mean, have you listened to the immigrant or the Cuban Americans that live in Little Havana in Miami? They are the most Republican, conservative people you ever meet. They are more Republican than Mitch McConnell or even Donald Trump himself. All right. So anyways, and then, like, let's say, like, this is the part that hits me. It's like I had students say things like, I don't want people to think I'm like those immigrants. My dad says if we just stay quiet, no one will come for us. We're not like the ones on TV. That's the effect on manufactured consent. It's not just how we see the world, it's how we see ourselves. I even believed I lied when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I thought, well, I'm the good one. Why don't you guys act like me? And I realized how wrong I was. And this is where I want to leave you. We are not cartoons. We're not good or bad. We're not redemption projects or threats. We are people. People with stories that are complicated, painful, joyful, messy, unfinished. And it's time we stop letting politicians and screenwriters define the only scripts we're allowed to play. Because when the only stories you hear are stories of fear or gratitude, then there's no room for stories about the truth.
So the issue of who to let into this country and who not to let into this country is about as old as the country itself. It's an issue that America has debated since the early 19th century, and we've admitted people from nearly every single country since, but it hasn't really been an even admission process. So this line represents 200,000 legal immigrants to the U.S., and we're going to stack them up to see when they came to the U.S. and where they came from. So early on, most were European, largely Irish, German, and British, and there were also Chinese and Canadian immigrants. But in 1882, the U.S. passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which banned Chinese immigration for 10 years. That was extended and then made permanent, and it wasn't repealed for 61 years. The economic depression of the 1890s decreased European immigration and nearly stopped Canadian immigration entirely. But after the Depression, the demographics of immigrants changed, and there was a rise in Russian, Italian, Spanish, and Japanese immigrants. In 1917, the U.S. banned immigration from Asian countries entirely except for the Philippines and Japan. In 1921, the U.S. capped immigration based on nationality. This severely limited the ability to immigrate to the U.S. for people not from the Western Hemisphere or a country with older roots in the U.S. Then the Great Depression happened. All immigration plummeted. Then World War II happened. The U.S. refused to increase immigration caps for 20,000 Jewish children fleeing Nazi rule. It also stopped naturalization proceedings for Italians, Germans, and Japanese. In 1952, the U.S. stopped excluding immigrants based on race, but more stringent quotas meant most slots were still for Western Europeans. In 1965, the quota system was entirely repealed. It allowed for a far more diverse group of immigrants, particularly from Central America and South America, but also Asia. In the 1970s and 80s, Asian immigrants arrived in huge numbers, largely from the Philippines, South Korea, India, and Hong Kong. The U.S. also evacuated 130,000 people from Vietnam after the war. In the 1990s, the U.S. increased immigration caps to 700,000 annually. The country began to invest in border security to discourage unauthorized migration, but in exchange allowed nearly 1.7 million Mexican immigrants in the 1990s. Immigration to the U.S. is now more diverse than ever. But with the rise of ISIS and the Syrian refugee crisis, prominent politicians are again talking about which immigrant groups to restrict. If you want to see how people from a specific country came to the U.S., click here for the full interactive.
Now let's flip the script. Because every time someone yells about the right way to come here, every time they demand perfection from refugee kids or lecture asylum seekers about legal pathways, they don't even understand it themselves. I think one thing, could you survive your own system? Let's be real. White America couldn't last 5 minutes in the United States immigration process. Not the paperwork, not the cost, not the language test, not even the history test. Not even civics. They can't even pass that. Immigrants have more understanding of civics and American history than they do. Now, they couldn't survive the silence, not the fear, not the threat of deportation hanging over their heads like a sword. You think I'm exaggerating? Let's walk through it. Because this is a scenario time. Let's say you're a working class white American. No college degree, factory towns gone under, rent's behind. You want a better life. You've heard Canada's nice, or Germany, or maybe you want to try your luck in Mexico. So you apply to immigrate legally. Step 1, learn the language, not just casually, enough to pass the written and verbal exam. In many countries that includes political terms, local dialects, and idioms. Oh, and do it while working 2 minimum wage jobs, raising your kids, and paying rent. You good? Cool. Step 2. Pay the fees. To apply for permanent residency in the United States right now, you'll pay $1,225 in application and biometric fees alone. That's it. That's only the beginning. Want to naturalize later? Add another $760. Each visa renewal can run another few hundred. And if you mess up paperwork or need a lawyer, that's $3,000 to $5,000 easy. And here's the kicker. The United States does not provide free legal help for immigrants in civil or immigration court. So even refugee children, literal children, have to defend themselves in court without a lawyer. Can you imagine walking into traffic court without a lawyer? Now imagine doing it in another language to decide if you'll be deported. Step 3. Prove that you won't be a burden. This is real. It's called the public charge test. The United States has used it since the 1800s to deny immigrants who might need government assistance. You are basically forced to prove your worth to capitalism. Do you have a job? Savings? No disability? Good health insurance? A sponsor? Because if you've been poor, even temporarily, your chances plummet. And remember, you can't have any serious criminal records. In some cases, even a traffic ticket or marijuana charge can disqualify you. Sounds fair? Alright, cool. Let's move on then. Step 4. You better blend in. You don't get to protest. You don't get to criticize the government. You don't get to fly your flag or speak your language in public too loudly. You definitely don't get to talk about the war you fled or the trauma you carry. Because if you do, they'll call you ungrateful. If you assimilate too much, you're a sellout. Not enough, you're a threat. That's the tightrope walk. No mistakes, no missteps, no mispronunciations. Now imagine doing all of that after surviving a civil war, after losing your home, after watching your cousin die in a refugee camp, and still being told, sorry, you didn't check box 3B, you'll need to reapply in 18 months. And now, contrast that with American tourists. The same people shouting about English-only laws, they go to Paris, Tokyo, Mexico City, and expect everyone to speak English. I've seen it. When I was in Colombia, every freaking American came in and is like, you speak English? No, how about you learn the language too? Because we're expected to when we come here. They get angry when menus are translated. They wave their passports like a Costco membership card. Like, look at me, I'm American. See what I do? They get irritated when a cab driver can't understand them. They complain that people don't smile enough or don't know customer service. So let me ask, if Americans won't even learn a few words of Spanish on vacation, what makes you think they'll survive a full immigration process? Because, spoiler alert, they wouldn't. And this is where the hypocrisy turns deadly, because this isn't about rules. If it were about rules, we offer legal help. We streamline the system, we reduce the fees, we increase refugee caps, we process asylum claims faster, we treat people with dignity. But we don't, because the rules are just the custom. The real story is race. The real story is power. The real story who the rules are built for are who they're used against. And here's the truth. The myth of the good immigrant only exists to protect the comfort of the bad citizen. You know the one, the citizen who's never filed taxes but called immigrants freeloaders. The one who fails civics class but wants everyone else to pass a test in English. The one who's never had to leave their hometown, but thinks they just do it legally if they've ever had to flee. The bad citizen isn't undocumented. They're uninformed, unaccountable, and entitled. They don't want fairness. They want dominance. And the worst part is that our government has given these people the power. So here's my question. What would happen if we apply the same standards to everyone? What if U.S. citizens had to pay $2,000 to vote, speak 2 languages to work, prove they never use welfare to keep their passport, pass civics tests every 10 years? They'd riot. But when it's immigrants, especially black, brown, poor, or Muslim immigrants, suddenly those rules are just common sense. It's not about legality. It's about leverage. It's keeping people scared, separate and small. And we let it stand. If we stay quiet about it, we're part of it. So next time someone says, well, they should have come here the right way, look at them in the eye and ask them, will you survive the system you're defending? Because if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to burn the whole thing down and build something better.
Inside this old warehouse in South Texas, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol is keeping hundreds of immigrant children in cages created by metal fencing. The U.S. Border Patrol on Sunday allowed us to briefly visit this facility where it holds families arrested at the southern U.S. border, responding to new criticism and protests over the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy and resulting separation of families. At that time, more than 1,100 people were inside the large, dark facility that's divided into separate wings for unaccompanied children, adults on their own, and mothers and fathers with children. The cages in each wing open out into common areas to use portable restrooms. The overhead lighting in the warehouse stays on around the clock. The Associated Press, nor any other media organization at the time, was allowed to independently film this facility. The video you are looking at shows us touring around the facility, and it was handed out by the federal government. The Border Patrol told us close to 200 people inside were minors unaccompanied by a parent. Another 500 were family units, that's parents and children. Many adults who crossed the border without legal permission could be charged with illegal entry and placed in jail away from their children. Nearly 2,000 children have been taken from their parents since Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the policy, which directs Homeland Security officials to refer all cases of illegal entry into the United States for prosecution. Church groups and human rights advocates have sharply criticized this policy, calling it inhumane. Facility behind me is essentially a clearinghouse for these illegal entry cases. When there are families involved, this is a place where families are separated because the parents' next step is to go to federal court. The children then go to facilities that are run by the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement. In many cases, the parents are being given handouts on how to find their children once their legal cases are disposed of, but there is really no way to verify how accurate those handouts are and if the parents are having any luck in finding their kids in a timely manner. John Moan, Associated Press, McAllen, Texas.
After all that, let me end this with something personal. Because this whole episode isn't just about policy. It's about people. And I'm one of them as well. I didn't come to this country because I wanted to. I came here because my dad, who is an American, told my mom it was time to move back. Now, here, let me get this straight, because everybody's going to say, well, he married, blah, blah, blah. They were married in Colombia for over 13 years. That was home. But when he wanted to return to the United States, we follow. And I didn't want to leave. I left behind family. I remember when I had to tell my sister I had to leave, and I cried for almost a week. And she told me, don't cry. You need to grow up. You know, that was hurtful, but she was right. I had to embrace this. I didn't want to start over, though, or leave behind everything I knew, or pretend like I was excited to become American. But I embraced it because I didn't have a choice. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm ungrateful. I'm happy. Hindsight is 2020. This was the best thing to happen to me. But at the time, I was a kid. You have to understand that. And then we moved to a small town. You know, the small town where, you know, everybody knows who you are before you open your mouth. And they judge you the second you do. And I remember those early days. Man, those were rough. Like whispering in Spanish at the grocery store with my mom. Scared someone would overhear us and say something ugly. We were afraid to be too Colombian, too brown, too loud, too obvious. And the funny fact is that my mom and I, we were not the brown Colombian. You know, it's like we were the more Spanish kind of thing. Like the white Colombian. You know, but we were still too brown for America, so go figure. But so I did what a lot of us do to survive. I kind of had to change my name. I picked a version that white kids could pronounce, and technically the school I went to made it for me. A name that felt safer for them. And at that time, I told myself it was no big deal. I was a kid again. I was a kid. I didn't think anything. But that name, it wasn't me. That wasn't for me. It was for them. It was to make them comfortable. Now, eventually I moved schools. And something shifted. Like, I started standing up for myself more. I stopped shrinking. I started using my real name again. Because I get to define me. Not some teacher who doesn't want to bother pronouncing it right. And then that confused a lot of people of my elder schools. Like, who is this person? Because they knew the other me. Now, when I graduated high school, I joined the Marine Corps. Because I believed in service. I believed in duty. And I believed that maybe, just maybe, wearing the uniform would finally make me enough in this country. But even in the military, I heard so many racist remarks. Jokes, they said. Just jokes. And I let them slide because I didn't want to seem too sensitive. Because I was trying to belong. Because even after boot camp, even after bleeding red, white, and blue, I still felt like a guest. And years later, in the workplace, it didn't stop. I had a colleague, a man who said the most racist, disgusting things I ever heard out loud. Not just jokes, not just microaggressions, blatant hate out in the open. And here's the kicker. He's moved to Virginia. He's laying a groundwork to run for public office. I won't name him yet because he hasn't made his campaign public. But let me be clear. We cannot let men and women with racist ideas and hateful histories lead our communities. We've seen what happens when hate goes unchecked. We've seen what happens when people pretend it's just a joke, man. We've seen what happens when silence lets bigots rise to power. Not this time. Not on my watch. So no, I didn't come here by choice, but I chose to stay. I chose to teach. I chose to fight for kids who are still whispering in grocery stores. I chose to speak up for families trying to survive this system without losing themselves. I'm not a good immigrant. I'm not a model minority. I'm not here to entertain anyone with my assimilation. I'm a person, a citizen, a teacher, a veteran, and I've had enough. Enough of the fear, enough of the double standards, enough of the lies we tell to protect the comfort of the bad citizen. So if this country is going to claim me, it's going to take all of me. Accent and all, history and all, name and all. And if that makes people uncomfortable, then get used to it. Get with the program. Because I'm here. And I'm going to be here. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for our community. I'll make sure that racist bigots don't go unchecked. This is why I have my platform. I'm speaking for the immigrants who can't speak English yet. I'm here to speak for the ones who have to go through my history or that has something similar. I'm here to be a voice for them. And this myth that there's the good immigrant is bullshit. We are all people. We are all human beings. We deserve to be treated like human beings. And then these things of like just come the right way, we need to fix the immigration system in this country. Because it's ridiculous how we treat anybody who's not white or Northern European. So maybe I'm going to get a lot of hate on this. Because I already seen it. All the nasty comments I have received about immigration. Listen, I already told you I'm Colombian, but I still get messages like Mexicant. Go back to Mexico. Listen, I understand they're trolls. But those comments, that is the idea of what Americans believe in, apparently. That anybody with an accent is a Mexican who deserves to be deported. We've seen it with Zoran Mandani. He is a U.S. citizen that won a Democratic primary in New York City, and what the right wing did like a politician wants to call for to take his citizenship away. What kind of country is this that we allowed that? We say that racism is not okay, but we let it happen. We elected, actually. So if we're going to say that we're a melting pot, we need to accept that the American culture means everybody. Yes, there is an American history. But you know what happens in the American history? What happened to the people that came through the colonies? They left because of persecution. They came here for new opportunity. So why are we punishing the people who are trying to do the same? So what I'm going to say is this. Everybody needs to be treated equally. And we need to stop treating anybody who does not look white like a criminal or threat. It's really not that hard. So I want you to really think about that. But anyways, that's been the problem with the lies we tell. Please follow me on social and listen to wherever you get your podcast. I'm here, man. I I'll keep working on this. But until next time, stay loud, question everything, and don't let anybody take away who you are.